Hello, boys and girls of Credit Union Land, and welcome to episode 50 of the CUInsight Experience. My name is Randy Smith. I'm one of the co-founders of CUInsight.com, and it is my job on the show to have conversations with the best and the brightest of the credit union community. I get to pick their brains and see if we can't find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. My guest on today's show is Susan Mitchell. Sue is the CEO of Mitchell Stankovic Associates, a long-time credit union advocate and cooperator. I was really looking forward to this conversation. Our paths have crossed many times, but to actually get to take the time and ask all of those questions that I've always wanted to ask, I knew was going to be a ton of fun. It did not disappoint. I will tell you this, after we were done recording, I thanked her because my face hurt from smiling so much. We talked about the global credit union movement, the Global Women's Leadership Network. We talked about the pace of change in credit unions and her underground collision and why it is so important to move fast with how disruptive everything is, quite honestly, out there. There was so much good in this conversation, so many just leadership lessons and life hacks that she's learned over her career. This was a ton of fun. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did having this conversation. So without further ado, I give you my conversation with Sue Mitchell. Enjoy. Sue, welcome to the show.
Hey there. I'm excited to be here. How are you, Randy?
I am doing so well. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Our paths have crossed a lot over time. We're actually Facebook friends, but I was looking forward to really getting to know you better. So this is a good day for me.
I'm excited as well. Thank you.
So let's just jump right into it. There were so many different directions I could go here. And so it was a question of where to start. But earlier this year, I was in Kenya and I attended the first Africa Women and Cooperative Network Summit at the SACA Congress in Kenya. It's a new part of the Global Women's Leadership Network. And it got me thinking, and I thought about you. There's 4 chapters now on the continent. They want 6 more this year. On a personal note, how does it feel to see a program that you helped launch and create now touch every corner of the globe?
Well, first of all, once you go to Kenya, once you go to the SACO event, there's just nothing like it. It truly changes your life. And I've been saying that. I got involved with World Council early in my career and over the years had projects and so on. But the key thing was when, Brian Branch came to me and said, hey, I've been observing this thing that's happening in the world, and we need to make sure that we have financial inclusion for women. And so that was in 2009. And he said, would you like to partner with me and help me found it? And I said, you bet. And so since that time, we've really, had an opportunity. But in 2010 is the first time I went to Africa, and I had an opportunity to be part of one of the original initiatives with Stella and the children at the orphanage. And we painted and, we just engaged and loved and laughed. And I know one of the things for me that hits home, and for anybody that goes there, is just how big a heart all of the people around the world have when they engage with each other. There's something so precious about that.
Absolutely.
And so one funny little story. So we're in Africa, and Mike Stankovic, my partner and my husband, we started the company together. We've been traveling together all these years. And so he's doing, physical, he's on the ladders, he's pounding nails, he's helping facilities. I'm scrubbing walls. And the women, Stella included, came out and they had this wonderful Kenyan scarves and material that they wanted to put on me. And they dressed me as a Kenyan woman. And I learned to do the Kenyan dance. And I was just having a blast out there. And then they turned to Mike and very seriously said to him, she's a Kenyan woman now. And he looked at him, he says, okay, good. And they said, now you can take another wife. And he says, oh, no, please, one is enough.
One is enough. So he didn't bring home one of those 3-legged stools that they have there, I take it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I brought home and, helped him with materials and made pillows. And it just was a moment then that we realized that this is what it's all about. This is when we can change lives.
It was my first experience this summer, and now I've already been back. I absolutely know what you're talking about and can't wait for more.
True.
So it does get you, that's for sure. It's funny. That was my first time to Africa, and I had many friends who are travelers who would tell me before I went that there's just something about it that just gets in you. I couldn't agree more. It sounds like similar with you. So a question that I had, you've worked with credit unions, you've helped credit unions for many years grow at an organizational level. What's been the biggest change in credit unions that you've seen over your career?
Well, it's interesting because when we first started the company Midas, our objective was educational opportunities, and we created the first online university. It was called creditunionuniversity.com, and we wrote curriculum. And one of the first modules I wrote was for credit union philosophy. And I actually at that time worked with NCUA and before the foundations and stuff. And we put that online, and then we translated it into various languages. And this is right after the world of multimedia. So we were very progressive. So we had videos, we had all of these things. And so at that moment is when I understood what a cooperative was and what it meant to have financial inclusion. And on a personal level, I've started 3 companies over my career, and credit unions understand what it means for a person trying to get started and the support over a journey. And so when we sold Midas in 2004 to Liberty Check Services, that was an opportunity with Stan Holland for me to kind of bring it to a larger level. And then, of course, it was Harlan and Clark, and it gave us an opportunity to work within the corporate world and to bring philosophy to that whole movement, if you will. So I've been engaged in leadership development from the time of actually writing curriculum to business books to strategic advisory services. And our focus today is much more on the CEO, board advisory, modernizing board governance. That's a big issue for me.
So, something else that I know you're working on and quite passionate about right now is the underground collision that you started a few years ago. I was, lucky enough to be a part of it once, and I think I've been to 2 of them now and plan on going again. If you could, just from that kind of blimp level, a couple different things for the listeners. What is the underground collision, first and foremost? What motivated you to start it? And what's your long-term vision for it?
Well, it's interesting. As you can tell from my career, we've been on a kind of an entrepreneurial path. Yeah. And so it's an opportunity to never be quite, if you will, in the system. We've always been furthering the system and very committed volunteer-wise. And for every hour that we earn a living, we donate, And so that's kind of how our philosophy has been. So when you look at the meltdown that happened to our industry in 2008, 2009, we had a transition take place that took our leaders from looking at what I call the strategic purpose of a cooperative to more financial consistency. The reality is that examiners really required, we built organizations around the insurance versus, if you will, helping people. And since that time, we've had, not that was bad. I mean, we had to save credit unions. We had to all work together to make that happen. So I completely appreciate it. But during that period, we ended up with a lot of focus on making sure we had net capital, making sure that we had average credit scores in this country today are about 670. And we know that we're leaving people behind, as evidenced by the 20,000 plus payday lenders.
Absolutely.
And so I became involved. One of our things that we've always done as an organization is have client get-togethers. So we have client user conferences. And I've always felt the best voices are the people that are doing the work. I love to engage with thought leaders like yourself. I mean, I loved our topic, the whole idea of fake news.
Absolutely.
Because you were fabulous and you said the things that were in your heart. And that's what I like. And so when we came back together after that, we said, let's re-engage with our clients. And let's do something special. And let's look at it from the standpoint of what aren't we talking about? All right. What is being left out of the conversation? Because the reality is that we're dancing,
Yep.
We're trying to stay afloat. We're trying to stay in sync. We're trying to help the consumers we can. But when it comes to really tackling some tough issues, we have a tendency to be politically correct. So, being who I am, and now you'll know a little bit more about me, our organization said, let's tackle and let's bring back our client conference. And so our flagship is in DC. And the idea is to have an underground session that gets a buzz going, and we collide with other organizations, other events, to get a conversation going around subjects that we're not necessarily tackling at the moment. So recently, the end of October, just real quick, we finished up the Money 2020, and everybody said, what are you doing? Credit unions don't go to Money 2020. And it's true. When I looked at the registration list, there were 10, 15.
Absolutely.
And, it's called the future of money for a reason. I mean, these are players.
You are preaching to the choir. This is the first one that I had to miss for another obligation in the past few years. And every year I am like, why aren't credit unions here? So it's an amazing event.
So you get it, right?
Yeah. I remember bumping into the one year I remember bumping into Dave Adams from the Michigan League and Sam Paxson from Co-op, and being like, where are all of our friends? Why aren't they here? So, this was...
No, it's really true. In fact, one of my Australian friends said that they always come and, they very seldom see, U.S. credit unions. So we decided to collide with Money 2020 just to bring awareness and to say where the credit unions, we need to have a seat at the table.
Absolutely.
And we also reached out and invited some of the speakers from Money 2020. And you're going to find this interesting. I also did some segmentation, and I found their group called #RiseUp, which is their women's initiative globally. And I connected with their founder and said, why aren't we all working together? We have, financial inclusion. Let's bring our technology folks together. So to me, it's all about let's bring people together, plant some seeds, and see if out of it comes some initiatives.
You are a cooperator at heart, it sounds like. So we will link to everything so people can find out more about upcoming underground collisions and join your mailing list and all that good stuff, because they are an awesome event. I look forward to coming to the next one. As a follow-up on an earlier question, is there something that you think credit unions need to change sooner rather than later to stay relevant, or maybe a belief?
I do strategic planning sessions, and I always research to see where we are. And I have this year what I call the good, the bad, and the opportunity. Okay.
All right.
The good news is that we're growing.
Yep.
65% of the asset growth is is held with $1 billion plus credit unions, though. So we've got growth, but is it representative? All right. So I talk about the good. The good, the industry seems healthy. We've got strong initiatives happening throughout the system. And so I feel there's some strength there. The bad is that we are leaving people behind. The majority of Americans don't even have $400 in their savings account. They can't plan for an emergency. And the question I have for my strategic sessions is, what are we doing? And this isn't about just having a financial inclusion or financial literacy or serving the underserved. This is really, to me, the core philosophy of what is a cooperative. And so fundamentally, our business model is at risk. So then I said the opportunity is that I really believe strongly that purpose-based strategies are not only the right thing to do, but it's good business. And so I structure it around the idea that we are the first social cooperative, right? We come together over a field of membership. We come together over issues. So I'm on the foundation board for Worldwide Foundation, and we want to be prepared for social disaster. I don't know about you, but I've been in lockdowns with my grandchildren's classes where there's an active shooter outside. I find myself in Las Vegas where we've had the horrible situations.
Absolutely.
So for me, the question really becomes, and I've talked to, Redwood and Brett Martinez, and I've talked to Brian Branch. I've talked to key people across the country over hurricanes. I just talked to them about the earthquake that just happened in Asia. What are we doing? People mobilize over disasters, but we don't necessarily prepare for them. And so that's where I come back to, what are the opportunities? Let's be credit unions again. Let's be cooperative. Because frankly, I tell my best friend, what I love, and I'm passionate about credit unions, but I don't tell my tellers know more about me financially.
Right.
So we've got a pretty strong connection, Let's get back to our business of doing the right thing.
It's interesting you say that. I think that was part of what I found so energizing overseas was like you mentioned Asia, that saw the same thing in Africa, like the basic level of cooperation and doing good for like their communities to actually raise people up. To me, it was beautiful the way that people there talked about like what their mission was. So I'm with you. I want to be respectful of your time and move on to the second part of the show. I know you're going to have a ton to share here. I was looking forward to this section with you, the leadership and the life hacks. But to go back, I wanted to ask you a quick question. What inspired you to go off on your own? And you said you've been an entrepreneur most of your life to start your current firm.
Well, we started the company. Well, first of all, I worked for IBM, and I was in a remote location, and I helped develop as a systems analyst a multiple regression model to evaluate property.
Okay.
So that was very exciting. And I ran around the country and taught appraisers how to evaluate homes. And in the process of doing that, I loved the energy that came from going to different places and interacting with different people. And I had the bug of wanting to do something from a technology standpoint. And we actually, in those days, it was computer time sharing. So we were selling time off of a mainframe. And so I was used to my laptop running around and all that. So we started our own company, and I was like 30. And the idea was, I want to do this for a living. And we have no money. We have no investment. We just have a lot of energy to changing things. So our first company was called Midas, and it stood for Marketing Data and Analysis Systems. And we invented, if you will, CreditUnionUniversity.com. And then we did mystery shopping and marketing. So that was our service value proposition. And we continued to grow that. When we partnered with Liberty, did a strategic alliance, we had 5,000 credit unions using our university. So it was pretty powerful. So I've always wanted to be on my own. The idea of having someone, not tell me what to do, but maybe slow down my progress. And I can see you smiling, so I can tell that we relate on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard work, as you know. It's 24/7, 365. We're never really down. But you get to integrate your own core values with what you want to do.
That's also true. Let me ask you this. How has the inspiration changed over the past few years, with time on the job?
Well, in the late that's probably around 95 towards 2000, I became actively involved in what we called our SHE group, where I got women together and we talked about, could we have daycare centers? Could we do some things? Because credit unions were so close. So I started to hone in more on diversity. Okay. And not just from a gender perspective, but frankly, our industry is representative of 1 billion people. I mean, the World Council touches over 1 billion people. And people don't realize that because they look at the number of households and so on. But the reality is we have a huge reach. And if you go to conferences, Randy, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I got heavily involved in diversity. And, I call it pounding the rock. You just put your head down and you push forward. And people would tell me there's no issue in credit unions. And I'd say, really? Okay. And so, as you know, we're now mainstream in terms of there's much more of a voice. We have a united voice. I think we have work to do within our own community to support each other. I think that we have our trailblazers. We have the people that are out in front, but they don't necessarily want to be. For me, it's the village. And I know that sounds like it's a cliche, but it truly is. When
Absolutely.
You went to Africa and we go to Asia, when I get to work with Lenny Simroke and I get to work with Manfred in Brazil and Ellie and Macedonia, all of these people are changing the world. So that's how it changed. It became, all right, at first it's like put food on the table, then it's put food on the table, but share part of the food. And then it becomes now let's all of us commit. So our whole family commits to changing the world locally and globally.
Oh, I love it. It's absolutely beautiful. How would you describe your leadership style? You sound like a collaborator to me, but
well, I'm a collaborator, but I have a saying that I tell my team, race me to my chair. I want you to want my chair, and I want you pushing, and I want you pushing me out, and I'll go find something else for you to do. Don't worry.
I absolutely love that.
I really people motivated and with energy. There's nothing, I think, harder than being the person that everybody wants to have be the motivator. Oh man, when I'm around Randy, he makes me feel so cool. I get so excited. There's such great energy. And then you go, yeah, but when I'm done,
Right. Yeah.
to pass the ball, right?
Yep.
And so I think my leadership style is, I'm a collaborator because frankly, we all have such wonderful voices and I want equal voices. I don't care if you're $1 billion CEO or if you're running a $50 million shop, let's all get in the same room and talk about ideas, and I'll ensure fairness and integrity and no whining. And I've been accused a little of pushing back at the system, or that I'm working outside the system, and there's nothing further from the truth. I just think that we have to, it's kind of like watching football these days. If you don't quite make it to the touchdown line, somebody behind you is pushing your butt through the...
right, they're keeping you moving forward.
That's my style. My style is high energy, and I want results.
So has it always been that way, or is this something that you've grown into?
Nah,
that's been you.
Get out of our way.
So one of the questions that I wanted to add on that I normally don't ask on the show, but you've worked with a lot of leaders and you're doing your strategic planning currently. Have you seen what it means to be a successful leader change over the years? Yes.
I think that, first of all, I think that we've had different styles of leadership. I've had the opportunity to be in an autocratic style where, it was basically, then we transitioned to a Deming team style. Then we did more of a balance. So I think that what I see today, and the importance of emotional intelligence, intuitiveness, the ability to relate to people, has a significant impact. And, we wonder about the rise of women within leadership. I think that we've got an intuitive emotional intelligence out there that we need to draw upon, have more confidence in. And I'm always going to be the person that wants to bring everyone along. I won't necessarily say this is right or that is wrong, Instead, I'll say, come on, let's learn from each other and hold hands to go into the future. So I think leadership has changed in that way. I do think it's a balance today, though, because credit unions are skilled at the ideas and the desire, but execution isn't always there.
Yeah. Yep.
And the speed of execution, geez, we got to move faster.
That has been a reoccurring theme on the podcast, is we got to quit talking about it and start doing it. So
good intentions, but less than the best execution.
This is something I was looking forward to asking you. Is there something your team or the people that have worked with you over time have heard you say so many times that they can finish your sentence?
I can hear a few people. In my mind right now. I think probably get over it.
Get over it.
I'm really about let the baggage go. My husband tells me little anecdotal information here, but Sue doesn't care where she's been, and you can tell because she never combs the back of her hair. I only care where I'm going.
Well, I love that. That's where we're supposed to care about the moment and where we're headed, right? So when you think back to earlier in your career, is there a mistake that you made or one that you see young leaders make often? Kind of that, if you were giving some advice to your 25-year-old self?
Yeah, I don't think it's be patient, because I don't think that we need more patience, but I think we need more articulate ways of stating our objective. Often, as a young person and as I've continued throughout my career, I have a lot of passion about results, but you have to bring people with you. So you have to be able to articulate it in a way that people can connect to, And quite often we have a tendency to just, hey, let me plow them down or let me push my way through, or we become quiet. So if there's anything that I think we need to be better at earlier is communication skills that effectively engage your audience where they become part of it. They want to be part of it, and they want their own voice to be part of it.
Do you have any hacks for, say, a young person out there listening to work on their communication?
Well, we just we did a collision with YCUP, and we brought our legacy leaders in the same room with our emerging leaders, and we said, tell us the language that we use on both sides, right? And so there was one side saying, take your time. You have to earn it. I've been here X number of years and you expect to have it overnight. Then the other side says, I'm tired of having to be told what to do. I want to give opportunities, The whole idea that there's that clash happening. We have 5 generations in the workforce today.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
And when I go out with my boards that I work with and the boards of the different volunteer groups, I find that, we're having a clash right in that area. We have to have respect from our emerging young professionals, and we have to have respect from our legacy leaders, because together we are so damn strong. And I look at artificial intelligence and these things. If we're not careful, guys, we've got to be marrying our talents.
I agree with you. Any memorable failure? You've built a few companies that when you look back on it, you're kind of glad it happened that way because it led to future successes?
Yeah. When I told you earlier that I worked with a timesharing, with the IBM timesharing unit, and we had this wonderful regression model. The more I sold, the more the company lost. They didn't price it properly. And I was a good salesperson, so I'm out there doing my thing, and they finally pull me in and they say, so you can't sell it anymore because the way we've designed it, it's just not effective. That was a real blow to me.
Yeah.
But it taught me about you've got to make money. It's not just about effective leadership. It's also about the idea that you want to have a net income. You want to have something that you have value so you can return it to the areas you want to do. Innovation requires R&D, and R&D requires a profitable model. So, yes, I learned it early. I almost worked myself out of a job.
You worked yourself. I was going to say, that's what it sounds like.
But it was one I took to heart. It wasn't one that I looked at it and said, I was frustrated. I just realized if I'm going to do this, I've got to understand the pricing and the cost structure and how to take to market as well.
Has there been a piece of advice or a life lesson that you received that you find yourself going back to over your career?
Yeah, I had a CEO of a startup bank in California who became comptroller of banks. And he said to me, garbage in, garbage out. I had a new system that we created called Branch Data Exchange, and we were getting all the banks to sign up, and we were exchanging information so that we could look like a customer information file, and we could look deeper. But the data wasn't good, so your conclusions aren't good. And he called me, and he kind of was my heckler. What are you doing? And he was older than me, and I go, instead of getting upset, I said, can I come up and meet you? And he ended up being my mentor for 10, 15 years. So I think sometimes we have to listen to those voices out there that aren't always supporters.
Oh, yeah.
And say, okay, what can I get out of this without having it bring us down?
I've always said you need the person you don't need a room full of people just telling you that what you're doing is awesome. So it's the ones who kind of poke those holes for you can sometimes be the most valuable. So if you have a free day, there's nothing on the calendar, what passions do you have outside of credit unions in your company? What do you do to recharge?
I hike. We have a couple hundred acres in northern Nevada, and we have horses, and we have animals, and we build ponds and stock fish, and we just have a wonderful outdoors Western. I'm a Nevada girl. I like cowboys.
That's fantastic.
And rodeos and all that stuff. Yeah, and reading, and then I have small thing, but I have 5 grandchildren. At one time, they were all under 5. So I am blessed. Grandma Susie is the best.
That's
keeps me kind of busy.
One of your favorite jobs, I'm sure. So again, want to be respectful of your time. So I'd like to get to the rapid fire questions. The questions are rapid. Your answers do not have to be. So do you remember the first time you got into memorable trouble?
I remember not having enough money to get a cab back to the airport because I was having a little bit too much fun in San Francisco.
Awesome.
I recruited some friends and they helped.
I was just going to say, how'd you get back? You obviously made it back. So do you have any daily routines that if you don't do, your day just feels off?
Yeah. I mean, I like to get up and do yoga. I walk, but I always start with my gratitudes. I want to start with the things that I believe, I'm just lucky to have in my life. And if I do that, I find myself refreshed and re-energized.
So are your gratitudes, if you don't mind me asking, something you write down, or do you something you just sit with, or how does that work?
Well, it's interesting, Randy. I do them two ways. One is every morning I start with gratitudes as I'm walking. What am I grateful for? It's a wonderful day. I'm grateful for my coffee. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm out. It's beautiful. I'm alive, all those kind of things. But I also do an exercise with a friend of mine, and we get together once a year, and we do 30 seconds of gratitudes, 30 seconds of what we've accomplished, 30 seconds of, goals, and then 30 seconds of what we want to do the following year. And it's like a real rapid fire, and we write it down, everything that comes to mind, and we know we only have a certain amount of time. And then out of that, we tell them to each other, and then we commit that this is what we're going to work on. So I just got back from Sedona in Arizona. When I went down there, we just did this exercise, so I'm kind of pumped up, fired up. Things I want to do.
So how did you start doing that? Was this and is this friend if you don't mind me asking, is it a lifelong friend? Is it somebody in the industry? Is it, somebody outside the industry?
It's retired CEO Judy McCartney.
Okay.
She ran Orange County's credit union. She's been retired about 15 years now, but she and I hooked up because I also have a passion for astrology and past life regression. And I do a lot of weird stuff that not very many people know about. And she happened to have that same passion. So probably 20 years ago, we started connecting. And my original she groups, I would take out and we would have spiritual guides, and we'd have all of these experiences to get us out of the day-to-day and to get people thinking differently. And so I continue it today. I do charts for friends. I do all that stuff.
I guess got to go back to the gratitude thing this is amazing to me. I absolutely love it. So this is completely scratch my own itch. So is it something when you write down your 30 seconds of gratitude and what you want to accomplish and what you have accomplished, and she does the same, then do you share those with each other? Do you hold each other accountable throughout the year?
Absolutely. In fact, we go through our list from the previous year and we have to be accountable to each other. Like, what did we actually do? And then if you didn't work on it or something took place, it's like, why? What happened?
The why
what
question.
got your way?
Oh, I absolutely love that. And my guess is the next time I see you, I'm going to ask you more about it because I think it's a fantastic thing. So it seems to fit. I journal every morning and part of that's gratitude. So it's I get that.
Yeah. And one other thing is I carry it with me everywhere. So it's in my calendar. So let's say you and I are on an airplane and we're going to Africa and we're going to do some volunteer work. I'm looking on my list and I'm saying, okay, be grateful for this experience. Think about what you can do to maximize this. So it's making me stay honest with myself too.
I absolutely love that. When Bob Trunzo was on the podcast, he carries around a card in his pocket from January 1st all year through. So it was just everything else is noise. This is what matters, basically, with the focus for the year.
Right.
So that is fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. The random question: what's the best album of all time? That one you can listen to from front to back without skipping a song.
Oh, album?
Yep.
Marvin Gaye, baby. What's going on?
That's a good one for the playlist.
It sounds like a long time ago, but I was listening to it the other day, and with what's going on in the world today, boy, I'd love to hear him, just blare it out there. And one day.
One day.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm a reader. Jill and I have a stack of books in our house that most of them have been recommended to us that we're trying to make our way through. Do you have a book that you've either gifted a lot over time or one that you just think everybody should read?
Well, it's interesting. For 10 years of our company at Thanksgiving, I sent all our CEOs a book. And that book would be one that we would then talk about for the next year. I have a library that's the size of 2 bedrooms. I am a massive reader, and so is our family. Recently, I am focused on more about just the whole idea of how social purpose, the whys. I'm looking at how to build all of this into your daily life. But I just purchased today to send to my clients, so fresh off the press, outside the box. And it's going to be this whole idea of how to do things wrong.
Okay.
Because by doing things wrong, you'll learn. And so, yeah, a little bit of that. And then I'm also, because I have these wonderful 5 little beings in my life today, I'm reading all of the classics. So they get to hear how important Nancy Drew is, or, some of the early books in my life.
That's fantastic.
Kind of fun, except now they're reading books that I just walk away going, whoa, read it to me.
Well, I think it's awesome that you're a whole nother generation of readers. That's for sure. Hey, what book did you say you're sending your clients?
I just was researching it. Give me a minute and I'll pull it out for you.
If you would, after we're done, we can put it in the show notes so we can come back to that. That's cool.
Okay.
Question for you. As you've gotten older, what's become more important? And my favorite part of this question, what's become less important?
More important is the value of my time. I now understand that I don't necessarily have to spend 3 days to go for an hour presentation. And as much as I love the people, I'm learning to do more things digitally. And so the value of my time, how precious it is to me. And less important is the noise. Oh my gosh. I can, why in the world, Sue, are you out there pushing the envelope in that? Why do you need to do that? It's like, I don't know, guys. I have my own inner thing. And I'm going to try to not have that distract me as much as it has in the past. I'm kind of a want everybody to get along type of person.
Okay.
And the reality is that that's not always going to happen. And so with my personality to push right through, I just want to ensure that that's okay.
That's I think hopefully maybe it's a sign of maturity, right? Like letting the noise bother us less. I think when we're younger, we do seem to let it bother us a whole lot more. So there was a question that
one other thing, let me add before you go on. Yeah. I also am going to stand up more, Randy. I when I received the award a couple of years ago, my speech was all about standing up. And I believe we've got to stand up for what's right. And we do the Constitution education every year as part of our commitment to the community. And I want to stand up for the things in our lives that count. And so, yes, I'm making the kids hug trees, and I'm teaching them about poop and how the world is natural. I want to stand up for those things because we have to have a future generation.
Oh, absolutely. We'll link to your foundation award, the Herb Wagner Award, also the video there of your acceptance speech. So that will be in the show notes as well. There's a question that I didn't send you. When you hear the word success, who's the first person that comes to mind?
My parents.
How come?
I would say my mom and my dad. I mean, they were tough and they worked hard their whole lives, and I don't think they would have necessarily written success. But now that they're not in my life every day, I know they were.
That's beautiful. Mom is the most popular answer on the show, and Dad's got a few, so that's fantastic. I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. I thank you again, Sue, for being on the show. The last question that I have for you is, do you have any final asks of our listeners or final thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to challenge everybody to think beyond the local community and get to the root cause of some of the things that are taking place in the world today. Our legacy leaders have built an incredible system of credit unions, from our individual cooperative to our leagues and our associations to our World Council. And when I find that the foundation is having a tough time being supported because it's work being done outside the U.S., and yet I recognize that the root cause of some of the stress that we have in the U.S. is from outside the U.S., we need to understand that we're a world that all of us have to pitch in and be a part of. So the book that I'm sending to my clients is called Think Wrong: How to Conquer the Status Quo and Do Work That Matters.
I think that is the perfect way to wrap this up. Thank you so very much, Sue. We'll link to everything we talked about, including the book, in the show notes and the Underground Collision. What's the best way for people to reach you if they have additional question? LinkedIn, email, the Twitter machine? What's your poison?
All the way around. LinkedIn, Susan at mitchellstankovic.com, mitchellstankovic.com, theunderground.com, Underground Collision. I'm out there.
You're everywhere.
Find me.
Well, I appreciate it again, Sue. I hope you have an amazing day, and thank you so much for taking your time. I absolutely love your passion. This has been a blast. Have a great day.
All right, great. And I hope you guys make your flights.
Yes.
Have a great one. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being part of this, Randy.
Thank you, Sue.